So about a week ago, I started on what might seem like a rather strange experiment, and that was doing absolutely nothing every single day for increasing amounts of time. Now, the obvious question is why? It wasn't just to confuse the neighbors, although that was an added bonus, but it was actually to answer a more important question. Is doing nothing actually the secret key to living a better life? You see, there's an interesting category of videos that I stumbled across recently, and they're all centered around the same idea: doing nothing.
And today we're going to be talking about doing nothing.
This is the human brain while apparently doing nothing.
Or more accurately even, boredom.
Yeah, the phones are a killer. The phone's like, you zap any creativity or boredom. You need boredom.
Yeah, you do need boredom. Yeah, you need boredom for ideas to come to you, for sure.
Yep. So many kids now have no way to deal with boredom.
There's videos like The Power of Doing Nothing meditation. You'll even find a video from a guy 12 years ago who sat on his couch for 8 hours doing nothing, and that has 1.8 million views. And if that wasn't crazy enough, that guy even posted a follow-up video where he watched the video of him doing nothing for another 8 hours. Yeah, I don't quite get that either, honestly. Now, putting aside if this is some strange performance art or an attention stunt like Mr. Beast counting to 100,000, I feel like most of the videos that I'm seeing are tapping into something that's much deeper than that. I mean, because what's the big deal? I mean, it's just sitting, right? Now, I know the main problem that people have with this idea of just sitting and boredom is that can be pretty uncomfortable or even downright painful. Many of you, I think, are probably familiar with the 2014 study called Just Think: The Challenges of a Disengaged Mind, where they found that people left alone sitting in a room would choose to voluntarily shock themselves. Of course, this is coming from participants who had just earlier on said that the shock was so unpleasant that they would pay to avoid it. There's a reason why a lot of people say they don't want to be left alone with their thoughts, and a lot of times are putting in other outputs to kind of drown those background thoughts out. And of course, I think the other thing that kind of comes along with this is a feeling of stagnation, the feeling that you have way too many things to do, and that if you were to sit and not do anything for 10 or 15 minutes, then that's you wasting time that could be put towards a better use. But if you stick with me, I think I'll convince you that the art of doing nothing actually has more value sometimes than accomplishing things. If you were to look at the brain of someone who's doing nothing, you would find that 20% of the brain is active, and that's activity in all different hemispheres of the brain. And this brain activity that happens while we're in a state of not doing anything is called the default mode network. Think of it kind of like screensaver for your brain. It's connected to every region of your brain, and this network is turned off when we are engaged in a focused activity. Now, scientists have stated that it's very important that our brain switches back and forth between these two modes of focused and non-focused. And the disruption of this default mode network has even been implicated in depression, schizophrenia, and more brain-related conditions. Now, another thing that doing nothing activates in our brain is a space for introspection and memory consolidation. The act of not consciously trying to do something gives your brain the space it needs to process. Kind of like a lot of the processing that happens when we sleep at night and our memory gets consolidated, that same kind of effect is happening while we are just sitting. Now, another thing that this practice can do is also kind of a dopamine detox. And I know that's kind of a buzzword more recently, but I think that's pretty spot on with what we do need nowadays, because with the constant barrage of social media, movies, influence, games, we are constantly getting small hits of dopamine throughout our day all the time. And like with anything, there is sort of a desensitization that can happen when you're just overwhelmed with the same neurotransmitter again and again and again. So taking some time to reset this tolerance a little bit is super helpful nowadays. Now, this next aspect is probably the most important one to me, and that's when it comes to inspiration and creativity. I don't know about you, but I feel like I always get my best ideas when I'm lying down, falling asleep. And of course, in our day and age, that's really one of the only times where we get that unfiltered, uninterrupted time for our brain just to think while we're still awake. There's a reason why there's a whole Reddit dedicated to shower thoughts. And really, those two areas are really some of the last few places where we can really allow our brain to think, unless we do it intentionally. Now, this next benefit I found from the YouTuber who runs the channel, Better Ideas. And he talks about how one of the main driving things that adds to our procrastination is just having too many things around us, too many distractions, too many things that we want to do.
The lack of distractions that I surrounded myself with made me extremely bored. Bored enough that editing videos and being highly creative and doing what I love actually felt entertaining as well.
The video's titled as The Motivation Technique That You Don't Want to Hear, And it's kind of true. Nobody wants to hear that if they just sat themselves in a room, then the task that they've been avoiding would start to look a lot more appealing. I feel like I often feel this when I just feel like there's too many things that I have on my list that I want to do. Now I often feel this because I just feel like there's just an ever-growing list of things I want to do and research and get to. It never ends. And it often feels like there's almost this anxiety that comes with my to-do list and the other things that I want to accomplish. So paring down the distractions, putting away things and saying, hey, this is your 1 or 2 options that you can work on right now, that's super helpful for not procrastinating and getting stuff done more in the moment. And this last one goes beyond just the pure motivation to get things done off of our to-do list, but it goes to actually longer term goal setting. When you take time to just be, you get more introspective and you're able to look a little more towards the future and maybe plan out more of the goals that you want to accomplish. We're way more likely to think ahead of things we want to accomplish and set goals for ourselves if we actually give ourselves the space to be more introspective and to think more long-term about our lives. So those are the 5 main benefits that I found that come with this practice. But what did I actually find from doing this every single day? And my first surprise during this was that I didn't actually feel that bored while I was doing this exercise. Obviously with the shorter ones, it's not really long enough to really feel that boredom slink in, but even then when I got up to the 40-minute to the hour and 20-minute ones, I don't feel like the boredom really set in. And I'm not sure if that was partially because I really did have a strong goal of doing this every single day. I will say that probably affected this experiment a little bit, but I feel like my mind really had plenty of places that it wanted to go. It was almost kind of like my mind had built up this backlog of things that it hadn't been able to process while I was awake. And so my mind just kept jumping from thing to thing to thing the whole time. It was honestly kind of liberating to just set aside a time to sit, do nothing else, and just let my mind do what it does. I'd say the shorter ones, the 10 and the 20-minute ones, were nice, but I didn't really feel too much of a difference or too much of a change in that. I'd say when it got up to the 40 minutes to an hour segments, there was definitely more of an impact. I feel like it takes a little bit of time for your mind to kind of settle when you're doing an activity like this, so you really kind of need a little extra runway at the end. And one thing I did notice on any of the times I did this and the computer was close enough for me to kind of see the screen was that I was kind of paying attention to the stream, and that was kind of taking me out of it. So for the 2 hour and 40-minute segment at the end, I minimized the stream and I literally just had a clock on my computer screen. But when it comes to doing this for a little shy of 3 hours, I'd say that's probably a little excessive and unrealistic. This definitely would be too much time for me to spend just doing this every single day unless I woke up like at 4 a.m. But was there anything super profound that happened? Not really. I can't say I had the profound experience of breaking down or sobbing. That just didn't happen. But definitely was a time of just really having a reset and finding some more creative inspiration while I let my brain just sit. There's definitely something to not doing something, but maybe it is a little bit more hyped up in some of these videos. But honestly, after this, there really is a clear benefit to taking 5, 10, maybe even 30 minutes just to sit and let your mind process, especially if you're in any type of creative field. And you know, the crazy thing is you don't even have to schedule this into your day. All you have to do is the next time that you're waiting in line or sitting on the couch is just not pull out your phone. It's as simple as that. Opt out of distracting yourself in that moment to just give your brain a little bit of breathing room. And in the end, maybe this could be the most important thing that you end up doing or not doing. I mean, you know what I mean. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you would actually try. I live streamed all of my sessions from 10 minutes, doubling all the way up to 2 hours and 40 minutes. So if you want a challenge, you can pick one of those and do nothing with me. Hit the subscribe button, like the video if you made it this far, and as always, we'll see you next time, fam.